All right, everyone, buckle up, because today we are diving headfirst into a real head-scratcher.
We're talking about a 19th century craftsman who might have been a genius or, well, something else entirely.
Our guide for this wild ride is a chapter from Studio RacHell Post, which, if you haven't heard of it,
Which you probably haven't.
it's basically a collection of the weird and wonderful. And this chapter...
It's all about a guy named Frank Berlinger.
Frank Berlinger, yeah.
Yeah.
A name that pops up in history now and then, always surrounded by...
Controversy, mystery, and just a touch of...
creepiness.
Exactly. See, Berlinger was a bit of a celebrity back in Victorian England.
When everyone was obsessed with clockwork, right?
Yeah.
Automata. Those intricate little machines designed to mimic life.
Precisely. And Berlinger, he was a master. But not just any automata. His specialty, what he was known for...
were these tiny, incredibly lifelike house gnomes.
I mean, lifelike doesn't even begin to cover it. These weren't just wind-up toys. According to the book, they had skin.
Hair. Eyes that seem to follow you.
People in the audience, they swore they saw these little figures breathing.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Being in a packed theater.
Gaslight flickering.
And on stage, these little gnome-like creatures moving around like they're about to offer you a thimble of tea or something.
And that realism, that's exactly what got Berlinger into hot water, because people started asking...
Hold on. How do you even do that? Was it really just clockwork, or was there something more,
Something more unsettling going on.
Okay, so get this. There's this big incident described in the book at a London theater. Berlinger's latest gnome automaton is doing its thing on stage when it suddenly...
malfunction.
That's putting it mildly. This thing basically went haywire, tried to bolt into the audience. Chaos. People were terrified.
Understandably. So someone in the audience, in a moment of panic...
Probably thought the little guy was about to bite him or something.
...swings a plank of wood at the automaton, smashes it to pieces.
And that's when things get really weird.
The book describes blood spilling out. And, get this, brain matter, along with the usual gears and springs you'd expect.
Okay, now that's just messed up. Talk about blurring the lines between fantasy and reality.
Yeah.
You got to think that fueled the rumors that were already swirling about Berlinger, right?
Oh, absolutely. Was he really just a gifted craftsman, or was he using real gnomes somehow?
Harvesting their, essence or whatever to power his creation.
The book doesn't say. But it does mention that after that incident in London, Berlinger... he disappeared.
He vanished.
Just packed up and hightailed it to South America.
Talk about suspicious. Almost like he was running from something or someone.
Or had something to hide.
Right. Like maybe those rumors were getting a little too close for comfort. And it gets even weirder because according to Studio RacHell Post, the whispers about Berlinger, they followed him across the ocean.
Some say he continued his work down there, maybe even took it a step further.
Experimenting on larger subjects, perhaps.
The source is deliberately vague, which just adds to the intrigue.
Okay, so we've got mystery, we've got creepy automatons, we've got international intrigue. But it gets even better. Did you know that a young Mary Shelley, the Mary Shelley,
Frankenstein Mary Shelley,
the one and only, she actually witnessed that automaton incident in London.
Yeah.
Wait, she was just a kid at the time, but still. Makes you wonder if that whole experience, seeing a mechanical being come apart like that.
The blood, the brain matter.
If that planted a seed, and years later, bam, out pops Frankenstein, this whole cautionary tale about the dangers of playing God with technology and creation.
It's definitely a thought-provoking connection. Berlinger and Victor Frankenstein both pushing the boundaries of what's possible, or what should be possible, maybe.
Right. I mean, they were both geniuses, no doubt. But was there a darker side to their ambition? Were they so caught up in pushing the limits that they failed to consider the consequences?
Consequences like a mechanical gnome running amok in a crowded theater. Or, a creature made of spare body parts wreaking havoc.
Okay, so we've established that Berlinger was a bit of a mad genius. But what exactly was he trying to achieve? And what was he really doing down there in South America?
And that's where things get really wild. Because the source then jumps ahead like 70 years or something to 1963.
1963, yeah. In a dusty little antique shop in Stockholm, of all places.
Workers stumble upon these 3 partially constructed automaton heads.
And guess whose signature is all over them?
Our old pal Frank Berlinger, except these weren't your average clockwork creations.
These heads, they showed signs of once being alive.
Real bone, real tissue, all intricately woven with Berlinger's trademark mechanics.
It's like something out of a nightmare. Okay, whoa. hold the phone. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Are we talking about a guy from the 1800s who figured out how to...
Merge flesh and machine?
Yeah. I mean, that's not just clockwork. That's like next-level mad scientist stuff.
It really is beyond anything we'd expect from that era. And the source material, it doesn't offer any easy explanations, which makes it all the more...
creepy. But why Sweden, though? He's not exactly on the South America travel route.
Right. It's like he pulled a disappearing act, then reappeared in the most random place possible.
Maybe he was trying to throw people off his trail. Like if anyone's still trying to figure out his secrets.
Maybe he wanted to get as far away from those rumors as possible. Start fresh, you know?
Or maybe he found something in Sweden. Studio RacHell Post mentions how he was interested in Swedish folklore, specifically stories about
hidden folk. Creatures that live right alongside us but are invisible most of the time.
Wait, hold up. Are we saying he was trying to catch these, like, mythical beings and turn them into...
automatons?
It sounds crazy, but...
It does, doesn't it? But think about it. Back then, the line between science and, well, the supernatural, it wasn't as clear as it is now.
That's true. What might seem absurd to us now
might have seemed totally possible back then.
And those automaton heads, if they were really once alive...
It makes you wonder what he was hoping to accomplish.
What were his end goals?
Did he actually stumble onto a way to combine living tissue with mechanics, or was he just really good at making things look real, even if they weren't?
Maybe he was a master of illusion, like you said earlier.
Exactly. But even if it was all an illusion, it still raises ethical questions, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, what did those heads experience? Even if they weren't fully alive, were they aware on some level? It's pretty messed up if you think about it.
It really makes you think about the responsibility that comes with scientific exploration. Just because we can do something, does that mean we should?
It's like that old saying, curiosity killed the cat.
Right. Berlinger's story is kind of a cautionary tale, isn't it?
Totally. But also fascinating. So we've got this shadowy figure, Frank Berlinger. Genius, for sure.
Yeah.
But maybe also a little...
unhinged. Ambitious to a fault.
Yeah. We know about the London incident, his flight to South America, then those creepy automaton heads popping up in Sweden. But the big question is, who was he really?
And what was he truly capable of?
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle, but we're missing half the pieces.
And some of the pieces we do have don't quite seem to fit.
And that's what makes his story so compelling, right? It's this big unsolved mystery.
It's about confronting the unknown, facing those questions that might not have easy answers.
It makes you realize that some things are better left unexplained.
Or maybe it makes you want to dig deeper, to find out the truth no matter the cost. What do you think?
It's like Berlinger was holding up a mirror to humanity's weird obsession with, like, artificial life, even way back then.
Totally. And Studio RacHell Post, it doesn't shy away from those big, uncomfortable questions, you know?
Right. Like, what makes us human? Where do we draw the line between a really fancy machine and something more?
Exactly. And is it even possible to create life? Or are we just kidding ourselves?
And if we can, should we?
Berlinger's story, it really makes you think twice about all those sci-fi movies where robots take over the world.
No kidding. It's almost like he's a cautionary tale from the past. Like, hey, maybe be careful what you wish for.
Right. Like innovation and discovery are important, but maybe there should be some boundaries.
Some things we just shouldn't mess with, no matter how tempting it seems. But maybe that's the point of this whole deep dive. It's not really about finding all the answers.
It's about exploring the questions themselves.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't know for sure what Berlinger was really up to. Was he a genius? A madman? Or a bit of both?
And what about those automaton heads? Just sitting there in that antique shop, frozen in time. What did they see? What did they experience?
It's kind of creepy when you think about it. Like, those heads might be the only ones who know the real truth about Frank Berlinger.
And maybe some secrets are better left buried.
Maybe. But that doesn't mean we can't keep searching for answers, right?
Exactly. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the weird and wonderful world of Studio RacHell Post.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll finally unravel the mystery of Frank Berlinger. Until then, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.